So have you ever, wondered, what our ancestors used to believe in before Christianity was introduced? So looking at today, Christianity has become part of us. And if you notice, sometimes when you get to meet someone or you get to know someone, usually you ask them, what church do you go to? And you hear, I go to Anglican church, I go to Methodist church, or I go to this Pentecostal church. So today Christianity is a big thing in our lives. So we just want to go back, long ago, just to find out what our ancestors used to believe in. Today, Christianity is the most dominant religion in Zimbabwe, with an estimated 85% of the population identifying themselves as Christian. So today we want to explore what the Shona people believed in before Christianity. So if we look at the time before Christianity was introduced to Zimbabwe, the Shona people had their own beliefs and traditions. So these beliefs were very important in their lives because they helped them to understand the world, to understand nature, and to understand how to live in harmony with others. So the first thing we are going to look is their belief in Mwari, or their belief in God. So we are going to explore how the Shona people believed in Mwari before Christianity. So before Christianity came to Zimbabwe, the Shona people believed in one powerful God they called Mwari. Mwari was seen as the creator of the world, the one who gave life, everything, and who controlled things like the rain, the sun, and the harvest. Even though people could not see Mwari, they believed he was always watching over them. So since they believed in Mwari, how did they relate to Mwari? So they related to Mwari through praying. The Shona people would talk to Mwari through prayers and songs. They believed Mwari could hear them when they asked it for help or gave thanks. People prayed for things like rain, for their crops. They prayed for good health, or prayed for protection from bad things. They also thanked Mwari when they had a good harvest, or when their families were safe and happy. Also, the other things they did was they had sacred places. So the Shona people believed that Mwari could be reached in special or holy places. So these places included mountains, caves, and large rocks. For example, the Matonjeni shrine in the Matopo Hills was a very important place where people would go to pray to Mwari. They believed Mwari's presence could be felt in these peaceful places and natural places. And the other way they are related to Mwari was through spirit mediums. The Shona people could not speak directly to Mwari, so instead they believed messages could be passed to Mwari through spirit mediums. These were special people who were chosen by the spirits. The spirit mediums would communicate with the spirits of ancestors, and these spirits would carry messages to Mwari. During important times like droughts, the people would gather and the spirit medium would deliver messages or answers from Mwari. And the other way of communicating with Mwari was through ceremonies and offerings. So to show respect to Mwari, the Shona people held ceremonies. During these ceremonies, they would sing, drum, and dance to praise Mwari. They also gave offerings like food, grain, or animals to thank Mwari and to ask for blessings. For example, during a drought, people would come together to ask Mwari to send rain, and also one of the ways they communicated with Mwari was through rain making ceremonies. One of the most important times to call on Mwari was when rain was needed. The Shona people believed Mwari controlled the rain, so they performed rain making ceremonies to ask Mwari to give them rain for their crops. These ceremonies were full of dancing, singing, drumming, and prayers. So, just to summarize, the Shona people believed Mari was the most powerful being, the giver of life and blessings. Through prayers, spirit mediums, sacred places, and ceremonies, the Shona people showed their respect and love for Mari. So this belief kept them connected to nature, their community, and their traditions. The next thing we want to move to is the spirit of ancestors, Wadzimu. The Shona people also believed in Wadzimu, spirit of their ancestors. These were family members who had passed away but were still part of the family spiritually. The Shona people believed that the ancestors watched over them, they protected them, and blessed them. So, to show respect, families would perform ceremonies and offer food or beer to honor Wadzimu. So, the Shona people believed that when someone in their family died, their spirit did not disappear forever. So instead, the spirit would continue to live on as a Wadzimu or an ancestor spirit. So these spirits were very important to the Shona people because they believed the Wadzimu watched over their families and they helped them and protected them from bad things. So, who were these Wadzimu? We just want to dig deeper and explain what is Wadzimu or these ancestral spirits. Wadzimu were usually people from the family who had lived a good and respected life before they died. For example, a grandfather or a grandmother or a mother or father could become a wadzimu. So the Shona people believed that these spirits stayed close to the family to guide and protect them. So how did the Shona people show respect to wadzimu? To show respect to their ancestor spirit, the Shona people held ceremonies and rituals. During these times, they would offer things like beer, food, and snuff. Snuff is a kind of tobacco, or in Shona they call it bute, as gifts to the Wadzimu. These offerings were placed at special places like the family's shrine or under a tree. So the Shona people would pray to Wadzimu, to their ancestor spirits, to ask for help, ask for advice or protection. For example, if someone was sick, the family would ask the Wadzimu to help to heal them. Or if there was no rain for their crops, they would ask Wadzimu to talk to Mari to, or to talk to God on their behalf to send them rain. If someone needed success, like passing a test or finding work, they would also ask Wadzimu to bless them. So we want to find out how Wadzimu spoke to the family. So the Shona people believed that Wadzimu could speak to the living through dreams or spirit mediums. In dreams, people would see or hear messages from their ancestors. Spirit mediums were special people who could connect with Wadzimu and share their messages. So, what happened in the event that the Shona people forgot about Wadzimu? So, the Shona people believed it was very important to honor and remember Wadzimu. If the family forgot to respect their ancestors, the Wadzimu might become upset and cause bad things to happen. For example, they believed sickness or bad luck or a poor harvest could happen if Wadzimu were ignored. So, what was the role of Wadzimu in the family? Wadzimu were seen as protectors and helpers. They kept the family safe and connected. The Shona people believed that families who respected Wadzimu were blessed with good health, with wealth and happiness. So, to sum up this issue of Wadzimu or ancestral spirits, I would like to say the Shona people believed that Wadzimu were ancestor spirits who stayed close to their families. They showed respect towards him by giving them offerings, holding ceremonies, and asking for help in times of need. Wadzimu helped guide the family and kept them safe. By honoring their ancestors, the Shona people stayed connected to their past and kept their traditions alive. And the next thing we want to move to is spirit of nature. So the Shona people believed that certain natural places like mountains, rivers, and forests were sacred and home to spirits. These spirits were known as Mondoro or nature spirits. For example, some believed a lion could carry a spirit, which made lions very special animals. The Shona people believed that certain natural places like mountains, rivers, forests, and caves were very special and sacred. They thought these places were homes to spirits of powerful beings who could bring good things or bad things depending on how they were treated. So, what places were sacred? Mountains. Big mountains were believed to be homes of spirits and were often seen as places where people could talk to Mari or God. Rivers and lakes. The Shona people believed rivers and lakes had spirits that controlled the water. They prayed to these spirits for rain, for good harvest, or safety. Forests and trees. Some forests or big trees were thought to have powerful spirits that protected people or animals. And also caves. Caves were special places where people held ceremonies and talked to their ancestors or spirits. So, why were these places sacred? The Shona people believed that spirits lived in these places and the spirits could bring good fortune if people treated them with respect. If people disrespected the sacred places, the spirits could bring bad luck, sickness, or disasters. For example, if someone polluted a river or a lake, the water spirit might get angry and stop the rain. Also, for example, if people cut down sacred trees or hunted animals in sacred forests, the spirits might bring misfortune to their family. So, how did the Shona show respect? To show respect for the spirits in sacred places, the Shona people held ceremonies to pray and give thanks to the spirits. They brought gifts like food, beer, or snuff, tobacco to the sacred place. They followed special rules like not making too much noise or not fishing in sacred rivers. For example, when visiting a sacred mountain, they would pray quietly and sometimes leave small gifts. If someone wanted to use water from a sacred river, they would ask for permission from the spirit first. So, spirit mediums and sacred places. So, spirit mediums were important people who could talk to the spirits in these sacred places. If a family or a village had a problem, like no rain, the spirit medium would visit a sacred mountain or forest or river to ask the spirit for help. So, why were sacred places important? The Shona people believed these places connected them to the spirits, to their ancestors and Mwari, God. So sacred places were seen as holy and powerful. They were also important for teaching people to take care of nature. So by respecting mountains, by respecting rivers, forests and caves, the Shona people lived in peace with the spirit and their environment. They believed this brought them good health, rain, and blessings for their families and crops. So just to sum up what I've just looked at now, the Shona people treated mountains, rivers, forests, and caves as sacred because they believed spirits lived there. By showing respect, they stayed connected to the spirits and Mari, helping their families and villages to live happily and peacefully. Traditional healers or in Shonanganga. The Shona people believed that sickness or bad luck was not always caused by natural things. Sometimes they thought it happened because of spirits or because of broken traditions or even witchcraft. When this happened, they would visit a nganga, a special person who was like a doctor and a wise helper. The nganga knew how to talk to spirits. He knew how to use herbs and find out what was wrong. If someone was sick, their family would go to the nganga. The nganga would use tools like bones, sticks, or shells to talk to the spirits. This process was called kushopera or divination. The spirit would help the nganga understand why the person was sick or having bad luck. Maybe they'd upset an ancestor or someone was jealous and sent bad magic their way. After finding the cause, the Nganga would give advice and medicine. The medicine came from plants, roots, and leaves. Sometimes the family had to do a ceremony to make the ancestors happy. The Nganga also gave blessings to protect people from harm. The Nganga was very respected in the community because they helped keep people healthy and safe. This belief in Nganga showed how much the Shona people trusted their connection with nature and the spirit world. Spirit mediums, Mashikiro. The Shona people believed that some special people called spirit mediums or Mashikiro could talk to spirits. These spirits could be ancestors or Vadzimu or spirits from nature, like those in rivers or mountains. So the Mashikiro were very important because they acted as messengers between the Shona people and their main god, Mwari. When people needed help or advice, they would go to a Mashikiro. For example, if there was a big problem like no rain for crops, or there was a sickness problem or arguments in the community, the Mashikiro would speak to the spirits to ask for guidance. The spirits could help people understand what was wrong and what they needed to do to fix it. The Mashikiro would sometimes enter a special state, like a deep sleep, connect with the spirits. They would share the messages they received, such as performing ceremonies, making offerings, or changing certain behaviors to bring peace and blessings. So the Shona people respected Mashikiro a lot because they brought wisdom and helped keep the community strong. They showed how much the Shona people valued their connection with their ancestors, nature, and Mari, believing that all these things worked together to guide and protect them. So I would give you an example of Mbuya Nehanda Charwe Nyakasikana. She was a spirit medium and leader of the Shona people in Zimbabwe during the period 1840 up to 1898. She played a key role in the resistance to the British colonization. So as I have just explained, spirit mediums were very important because they could talk to the spirits of ancestors or nature. They acted as messengers between the people and Mari. So during ceremonies, spirit mediums would go into a trance or a deep spiritual state to share messages from the spirits. And I'm sure you know what we call this in Shona. It's they get kushikirwa, vanoshikirwa. So the next thing we are moving to is to ceremonies and festivals. The Shona people had special ceremonies and celebrations to show their beliefs and keep their traditions alive. These events were very important for their community. So there were different types of, ceremonies. So they had rainmaking ceremonies. So rain was very important for the Shona people because they needed it to grow crops and have enough food. When there was no rain, they held special ceremonies to ask their god Mari and the spirits of their ancestors for help. During these ceremonies, people would sing, they would dance and make offerings like beer food or special items just to show respect and ask for rain. The elders and spirit mediums, Mashikiro, led these ceremonies. So they also had harvest festivals. When the crops were ready to be harvested, the Shona people had big celebrations to thank Mari and the ancestors for the good harvest. They would gather together, share food, sing, and dance. This was a happy time when everyone came together to show gratitude and enjoy the fruits of their hard work. And also, they had ceremonies for funerals. Funerals were also very important. The Shona people believed in honoring the spirits of the dead. They held ceremonies to say goodbye and help the spirit to join the ancestors. They would sing, drum, and sometimes make offerings. This showed respect for the dead and kept their connection with the ancestors strong. These ceremonies brought the Shona people closer to each other, their ancestors, and Mari. So the Shona people celebrated important events like rainmaking ceremonies, harvest festivals, and funerals. So they would dance, sing, drum, and offer sacrifices to thank Mary and the spirits. So these events brought the community together and kept their traditions alive. So answering our question we are focusing on today, what did the traditional Shona society believe in before Christianity came? So in short, I would say the Shona people's beliefs were about God, Mwari. Their beliefs were also centered around their ancestors and around nature spirits. They believed in living respectfully with others, their environment, and their spiritual world. This way of life helped them to stay connected to their roots, community, and land. So we've come to the end for today. If you enjoyed listening to this video, please leave a comment, like, share, and subscribe to my channel.